Hey guys, this is Hunter with the Dial H for Heroclix crew back again with another entry in our rules explanation series. And this is going to be covering a topic that has been highly requested by you guys. And the topic is Horde Tokens. And I've used Horde Tokens before, but when I was doing my research in the rules for all the little details on these guys, I realized why so many people have requested me to break down Horde Tokens, because these things are probably the most confusing thing in Heroclix, or at least kind of seems like to me. Simply because it's not hard to understand why they work the way they do. It's just there's so many tiny little facets that it makes it really confusing. If you want to follow along with me, I would say open up hcrealms.com unit section, and also pull out your 2013 rulebook, and we're going to be on pages 21 to 22 under the bystander token section. First, I want to say that Horde tokens versus bystander tokens. What denotes one from the other, and what does it mean? Well, if you think of it in terms of kind of like tests you take in school, like SATs, all Horde tokens are bystander tokens, but not all bystander tokens are Horde tokens. Horde tokens are a type of bystander token. So any token, whether it is a completely separate token that you got in a starter set or an OP kit or something like that, or if it is, say, you're playing Phantom X and you place the EVA adjacent to you, your little EVA token that you make yourself, or if you just look off the back of the card, that any of that is a bystander token. So anything that's a separate one-click, basically, character is a bystander token. Horde tokens are different in that they can be stacked, and you can have more than one on top of the other. If you look at the trucker here from Fear Itself, he is not a Horde token. He's a bystander token that isn't a Horde token. He cannot be stacked. If you notice, he has no symbol of the letter M that denotes that he can be stacked to a maximum of so many. If you flip him over, you see that he has no powers. So he's just a typical bystander token. Man of Gondor from the Two Tower set is also a bystander token, but he is also a Horde token. You notice it says M equals 6, so he can be stacked up to 6. If we flip him over, we see that he has a stacking power. So that is the difference if you're trying to figure out something is a Horde token versus a bystander token. Now let's cover stacking. When two or more identical friendly Horde tokens, so they have to be the exact same type. So let's again go with Man of Gondor. So when two or more identical friendly Horde tokens are in the same square after an action resolves, it's considered a stack. So if we have a one Man of Gondor, and let's use an example, we have one Man of Gondor there. If this Man of Gondor starts down here and he makes a move action and he ends up in this square, now he stays in the square, and this is now considered a stack, whereas it was two individual tokens, it is now a stack. A stack can only be stacked up to its maximum, and again, that's the M. So Man of Gondor, you can only have 6 high on this stack. You can start the game with them stacked. So in your starting area, when you play Horde tokens, you could either start them separately, or you could start them already stacked up, and you don't have to start with the maximum of 6. You could start with 2 and 1, or you can do whatever you want when you start the game. You can start them however you would like to, as long as you don't go over your maximum. When a Horde token or a stack enters a square occupied by an identical token or stack, you may choose to have them merge into one stack. Now, I just showed that to you just a second ago. If the Horde token goes onto a stack, the action immediately ends, and the stack is given an action token that it would have been given at the resolution of this action. So again, let's take the example. Let's say that we have a stack of 2 Man of Gondors here, and we have a stack of 2 Man of Gondors right there, so you can see it better. and these guys make their move action. At the end of their action, they stop here, they stack, and then they take an action token. When two stacks merge, any extras over the max are placed in the last square the stack moved through before merging. So let's say, so we already said Man of Gondor's maximum is 6. Let's take a different example of something that has less than a max of, let's say the Man of Gondor only has a maximum of 3, just for the case of this example. So there's already 2 here, and now we have another stack of 2. And if the maximum was 3, when they stop and they merge, we have 4 now on a maximum 3, so we have to take 1 off and place it anywhere adjacent. If whenever you form a stack, that stack already had an action token, so let's say the stack of 2 already has an action token on them. And again, we had the little lone Man of Gondor there, and he makes a move that goes through the stack and he stops. If this stack already has an action token, you do not have to then give the stack another action token. However, you do have to complete the action right there on the spot. If you're using charge, you can't attack now. No matter what you're doing, if a single Horde token moves up on a stack, it has to stop, it has to merge, and then its action is over. And even if this action token, even if this stack hasn't done anything this turn, it still has an action token left over. The fact that somebody merged on top of it counts for this stack's action for the rest of the turn. It cannot take a non-free action for the rest of the turn. It'll just have to clear that token, and then next turn it'll be able to do something. But just remember, if you already had a token on the stack and this guy moves in, you don't have to give it another one, regardless if you have willpower or not. Now, another thing that's really confusing is, like I said, if there's already a stack here and a single token moves through, it has to merge. If it has to go in that square, it has to merge. If the giant stack, so here we have a big stack, moves through the square of a single one, it does not have to. So you just kind of have to think of it in terms of size. If a little guy runs up on a bunch of his buddies, he's going to join them. If a big group is already moving around, it doesn't have to stop when it lands on a single little token. It could keep going if the player chooses to do so. Alright, let's talk about unstacking. So here we have a maximum stack of 6 Man of Gondors here. As long as the stack hasn't yet been given an action token this turn, an individual token may unstack by giving it a move action to leave the stack and move away. So, as long as this stack hasn't taken action yet, you can choose to have one of your Man of Gondors take a move action and move off the top. Now, if, say, this Black Panther is an opposing character to the Man of Gondor stack, you have to roll breakaway if you attempt to get away. And if you fail said breakaway and give a token to the stack, now you can no longer keep trying to split guys off. But theoretically, if you had your stack, this is an opposing Black Panther, and you try to break away and you're successful, he moves away and he takes his action token. And then you can try with him. But if you fail one and the stack takes an action token, then you can no longer unstack. Because again, you can only unstack if your stack has not taken a non-free action yet. When a token or stack stacks, any game effect affecting it is now affecting the whole entire stack. So, and this is kind of covered in stacking too. So let's say, again, we have a maximum of 6 on our stack, and we have a stack of 3 here, stack of 3 here. And Black Panther has Outwit. If he outwits this stack's toughness, and this stack moves and merges and stacks to make a big giant stack of 6. This stack now still has their toughness outwitted. If you stack, any effects are now on this entire stack. Now that can be good and bad, like we saw. They have to lose their toughness because Black Panther had outwitted it from the original stack. If he perplexes down their defense, that'll still pass over. However, it can be good if you have the Book of Skulls. Oh, sorry about that. If you have the Book of Skulls and you have a hammer on this guy and he has +2 attack, let's say you put a hammer on one little token. When he merges with the stack, now the stack has a hammer. So it has the +2 attack. So it can be good and bad. Just remember, when you stack, all effects that were affecting this single character are now affecting the entire stack. When you unstack, you lose the effects that you had. So, and again, this can be good and bad. So let's say we have a max stack of 6. Black Panther outwits our Indomitable, and one of our guys breaks off. He lost the effect of the outwit, so he has his Indomitable back now. So again, it can be good and bad. But if we had this stacked up and then we dropped a hammer and gave it +2 attack, and this little guy moves off, he loses the effects of that hammer. So, it's good and bad. It'll be situational. A stack is considered a single character for all game purposes. Some examples would maybe be targeting. Say you have a character with 2 or 3 bolts and you're aiming at the Man of Gondor. You only have to use 1 bolt because this is considered one single character, even though it's 6, individual ones. It's considered one single character, and its point value is considered all of these added up. So 15 times 6, so 90 points. So this would be considered a 90-point character. So if you had a character that had, there's some characters that have like special poisons. If it's a character that's 100 points or less and you poison them, they have to take 2 action tokens. That would affect Man of Gondor. Or let's say that your poison gave tokens to characters who are 50 points or more. You look at the top, you're like, oh, Man of Gondor's 15 points. It won't affect him. No, it will, because you have to add the entire stack points up to decide how many points this character is. Another thing, when damage is dealt to a stack from an attack, that's the key phrase there. When the damage is from an attack, then you only remove 1 token from the stack regardless of how much damage they took. So let's say that Black Panther hits them with blades. So he hit the attack, he rolls blades, and he rolled a 6. Man of Gondor doesn't give a crap because he's only removing 1 token, even though he took 6 damage. You only remove 1 token. Now, if Panther had Flurry at the time and he hits both times, you would remove 1. Then on second attack, if that hits you would remove 2. So you can do that. But each attack can only remove 1 token. However, if you have effects that deal damage that aren't from an attack, and a cool example of this that I thought about would be Extremist Brute. If you take damage from anything else that's not an attack, then you remove 1 token for each damage. So here's a cool example. We have Man of Gondor, maximum stack of 6, and we have Extremist Brute from Iron Man set number 12. And Man of Gondor tries to hit him. He succeeds and hits him for 2 damage. We click Extremist Brute. Boom, he's got his special defense power now. His special defense power reads, when this click is revealed, stop turning the dial. At the beginning of your turn, deal Extremist Brute 1 unavoidable damage and deal 3 damage to each character and destroy each object, wall, and square blocking terrain within 5 squares. So, we pass turn over to Extremist Brute. He clicks, suicide bombs, does 3 damage to everybody. So this is damage being dealt, but it's not from an attack. So now this stack has to remove 3 separate tokens because it's taking 3 damage. So 1 for each damage. Another example would be Trinity of Sin, who does double Mystics damage. When Man of Gondor hits Trinity of Sin and he takes that Mystics, he'd have to remove 1 for each one, because the Mystics damage is not damage from an attack. And the reason he has to remove 2 is because Trinity Ascend's trait where they deal double Mystics. So that's another example. So anything that's not an attack, you remove 1 for each damage when it happens. Anything that is an attack only removes 1 token from the stack. And then one other minor note would just be that stacks cannot be carried, but individual tokens can be carried. But as soon as you stack them, they can no longer be carried. Now, when we look at the symbols on the back of a Horde token, we see a little S there. S stands for stack, of course. M stands for max. You do not get these stack benefits, these stack powers, unless you are actually stacked. And that sounds silly, but I've seen people, mess that up before. They have a single token, and they read, for example, let's read Man of Gondor's. Increase Man of Gondor's damage value by half of S. And they're like, oh, I have 1 token here. So that's a stack of 1. Half of my stack is 0.5, which rounds up to 1. I get to increase his damage value by +1. No. You are not considered, you do not get powers. You are not considered stacked S until you have more than 1 token on top of each other. So let's say we had 4 Man of Gondors here. And we look at their power again. Increase Man of Gondor's damage value by half of S. So we have 4, half of 4 is 2, so they get +2 damage. Pretty nice. If a power says win M, so let's look at a Horde token that has one of those. Let's look at the Spider token from the Mage Knight set, or actually from the, Desolation of Smog set. It reads win M, so win maxed. Spider can use reflexes, combat reflexes, and poison. And it is a max of 3, as we see on the front. So as long as there's 3 on there, he has reflexes and poison. So that's pretty nice too. So there's benefits of stacking. You get the separate powers, you get the bonus of no matter how much damage you take from an attack, you're only removing 1. So there are good and bad things about stacking. However, stacking takes time, as we saw. When we move those guys on top and stop, we have to give an action token to the stack for being stacked. So you have to plan out when you're going to stack and when you're not going to stack, and it's going to be kind of a character by character basics. Alright, now let's talk about epic games. Epic games are any games that are 400 points or more. Now, a note, this used to say 400 to 1,000 points, but in the 2013 rulebook, they updated it. Now, any game over 400 points is considered an epic game. In epic games, the rules for Horde tokens are a little different. Defeated tokens remove from the battlefield as they normally do, but at the beginning of your next turn, you may return them to the battlefield in your starting area. So let's show how that would play out. So we started with the Man of Gondor stack with our Black Panther team, and they're going up against an AIM team. We have Extremist Brute there. So we started the game, a couple turns in, Extremist Brute comes in, smacks the stack of, let's say, later in the game, they get beat up, they get flurried a couple times. Somebody else shoots them, they lose, 4 of their tokens from a bunch of attacks. Now Extremist Brute has flurry, kills one. We just got wiped out in 1 turn. That's okay, because in an epic game, you have the option, it's not mandatory, to return these guys to the battlefield in my starting area at the start of my next turn. You say, that seems pretty broken. Well, you got to consider that your opponent scores these each time they kill them. So even though you're bringing them back, you're giving your opponent more points when they kill them. And you also have to consider that there is a limitation on how many you can bring back each turn. So limitations are, you can do 2 tokens per turn per 100 points of the build. So let's say we're playing a 400 point game. 2 tokens per 100, so the maximum number of tokens I can bring back at the start of my next turn is 8. So we only have 6 this time, so we're good on that front. And then you have a maximum of 50 points per turn, and that is period. That's not per however many points of the game total. So a maximum of 50 points each turn can return. Now that we will be in having some trouble with, because these guys are 15 points. So if I wanted to, I could bring back 3 of these guys for a total of 45 points at the start of my turn in my starting area, and then the next turn I could bring back the other 3 if I wanted to. So that's a really cool option, and it's one of the areas where Horde Tokens are really fun and you can get more out of them. In an epic game, if all non-token figures are killed, all Horde Tokens are immediately defeated. So again, let's say that we have AIM versus Black Panther here, and his Black Panther's Horde Token team. And let's say on this team I built with a bunch of Horde Tokens. So we have lots of cool different Horde Tokens with Black Panther commanding them. And later in the game, you know, they take a little beating. But we still have quite a few Horde Tokens alive here. And Black Panther is our only figure. Extremist Brute comes in, smacks Black Panther and kills him. If this is an epic game, 400 or more, all these tokens, now that we have no other characters, I just have Horde Tokens on my team, all of these are immediately defeated. The opponent scores them, and then the game will be over because all your figures are KO'd. And another note about bystander tokens in general, whether they're Horde Tokens or just standard bystander tokens, is they have no keywords. However, there's a specific clause in the rulebooks that says that they do not count for nor against your theme teams. So typically, if a normal figure, a normal Heroclix figure, has no keywords, it does break your theme. But bystander tokens, even though they have no keywords, specifically do not break your theme. However, they're not going to count towards it. So if I'm trying to hit an Avengers theme with Black Panther and, you know, Iron Man or whatever, these guys are not helping me. I'm spending a lot of points on these guys, but they're not helping me meet the theme. But if I still have enough from my other figures to meet the theme team requirements, I will get theme team, even though these guys are on my team. So I know all this has been a lot to take in, but I hope it helps out. And it's a very complicated topic. Personally, honestly, I suggest just bringing your 2013 rulebook with you when you play Horde Tokens. Just to remind yourself of all the little different intricacies while you're playing the game, and so you can show your opponent, you know, because these are bystander tokens and Horde Tokens, especially Horde Tokens, are getting more prevalent now in competitive games, simply because now there are more viable ones than there used to be. Fear itself kind of, you know, started that trend, and we've kind of seen it a little bit more and more. So a lot of players are not familiar with them, and your opponent is gonna have lots of questions about Horde Tokens too, and they're not gonna be familiar with how they stack, how much damage they take, you know, each time they get hit, and things like that. The fact that they can come back if it's an epic game. So bring your rulebook with you so you can prove to your opponent, you know, how things work, and so you can remind yourself, because they are a very complicated topic, and there's a whole lot of little facets that go involved in playing them. So thanks for checking out this episode. Be sure to check out any of our other rules explanation videos, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll have weekly content. We're going to be recording best build matches very soon too, so we'll have some match content up there once a month, and every week we'll try to put out a video. Some of them informational, some of them funny, some of them just entertaining like matches. But just subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out our podcast, Dilate Your Heroclix, comes out every week on iTunes, YouTube, and Podbean.com.